Our next module within B3 Operations Management is Cost Accounting Part 3. And what are the subtopics we would be covering? We will be doing activity-based costing and joint and byproduct costing, also called the common cost allocation. Okay, now let's start first with the activity-based costing. What is activity-based costing? What we have done so far previously, we simply took all our overheads in manufacturing, indirect material, indirect labor, electricity, gas, water, taxes, insurance, depreciation, dumped them in a single cost pool, let's say $180,000, and we used some common allocation base, single allocation base, like direct labor hours or machine hours. Let's say we were expecting 10,000 machine hour in the coming period with an estimated overhead of 180,000 variable and fixed combined. This gives us a rate of $18 per machine hour. So if we have multiple items requiring one machine hour, each item will carry $18 of manufacturing overhead. This is called peanut butter approach, where application of overhead is applied on almost identical basis on the units produced. It doesn't take into account that some items could be complex to make, some could be simple, but we are charging $18 per machine hour on all the items produced. This is the problem with our traditional volume-based system. So the solution to this problem is activity-based costing. What is activity-based costing? Activity-based costing, basically it refines upon the traditional costing methods, but it has a very distinct assumption that resource consuming activities, material handling, production scheduling, so on and so forth, with specific purposes, they are the one who cause costs. And if different items we produce, they demand these resource consuming activities differently, then that is why we should have different cost of each unit of production. If they consume these resource consuming activities differently, so they should cost differently. That is the idea of activity-based costing. So instead of just having a single jumbo cost pool like in the previous example of $180,000 and using a machine hour or labor hour or even the units of output as the allocation base, what we do, we split this jumbo cost pool into its constituent parts. We'll discuss all this in detail, called the cost pools: material handling, production orders, product redesign or plant utilities. So each unit we produce, each type of units we produce will consume these resources, these activities differently, hence it will cost differently. So the previous problem we had in the volume-based system, where some items that should cost less used to cost more, and some items that should cost more cost less. This is called product cost cross-subsidization. This is the problem that we can conveniently resolve using the activity-based costing. We will discuss these cost pools in detail as we go along, but just the idea you need to remember is that in the traditional system, volume-based system, we just use a single rate based upon the single activity driver. But in activity-based costing, we have multiple cost pools, and the products that consume these cost pools differently will be charged with different costs. We'll explain this idea as we go along. So before that, we need to first learn some basic terms of ABC. First, the word activity. Activity is any work performed inside a firm. Activity can be a unit level activity. Any activity that can be identified with a single unit of product are called the unit level activity. Then activities that are performed on the batches, groups of products, they are called the batch level activities. Then those activities that are performed on many batches simultaneously, they are called product sustaining. Product sustaining. This is not in your book. This is an added knowledge for no extra cost. And then finally, the fourth type of activities are called the facility sustaining activities. Right? So unit level activities are those that are performed on single unit. Batch level, like material handling, it is for the entire batch. And product sustaining, like in this brewery, this product testing, research and development, which is in fact incurred on many products simultaneously, they are called product sustaining. And facility sustaining is like rent of the production facility, insurance. So as you move from unit to facility sustaining, it becomes much more harder to trace the cost to the end product. Like unit level activities can be easily identified in a single unit of product. Batch level with little difficulty. Product sustaining like research and development, like product testing, engineering changes, they're even harder to trace to the end product. And facility sustaining like rent, like insurance of facility, this is even harder to trace to the end products, right? So these are the activities. Then resources. What's a resource? Resource is an element that is used to perform an activity. Like we have computer processing would be used in research and development, engineering changes, production line, material management, accounting, sales and marketing, utilities. These are the resources, and different activities will consume these resources, and through these activities we transfer the cost to the end product. We'll discuss all this. So resources are elements that are used to perform an activity, right? When you are performing this research and development work, you are using computer processing, you are using human resources, right? Cost drivers. Cost drivers are the bases that are closely correlated with the incurrence of manufacturing overhead. For example, if we have here, let's say, the product design, right? It's a cost pool. It is driven by the number of products. If there are more types of products, then the product designing cost will be higher. If less, then the product designing cost would be lower. Similarly, production setup. It's a cost pool which is driven by the number of setups. If you arrange more production setups, the production setup cost would be higher, else lower, right? Similarly, machining. It depends upon the number of units produced. More units produced, machining cost would be higher, else lower. So cost drivers in ABC, they are activity bases that causes the costs to go up. On the other hand, resource driver, you can see here, this is the resource driver, CPU cycles, the usage of computer processing facility, machine hours, more, production line cost more, hours worked more, material management cost more. So resource driver, on the other hand, is the amount of resources that will be used by an activity. Now, this is quite a helpful arrangement here. We have resources. We just discussed resources are elements that is used to perform an activity. Resources are driven by resource driver. Similarly, and these resources are consumed by different activities that end up in producing a particular product, right? So for activity cost pools, we will also have activity drivers. Like for machining, we have machine hours. For production testing and inspection and testing, number of units produced. So each resource will have a resource driver, right? The amount of resources that will be used by an activity, and each activity cost pool will have an activity driver, just like we have discussed this right here. The next key terminology is the activity center. What is an activity center? An operation that is necessary to produce a product is an activity center. Any operation, material handling, production setup. And then finally, we have cost pools. What are cost pools? Cost pools are groups of cost. Like for example, if we have a material handling cost pool, right? This material handling cost pool is a group of costs. It will contain the salary of those people who are responsible for handling materials, moving them from one place to another. It will involve the depreciation of the tools that are used to transport or to carry goods from one place to another within the production facility, right? And other electricity consumption for using the machinery to move from goods from one place to another. So material handling cost pool is a group of costs related to all the costs that are directly identifiable with this activity, material handling. Here, this activity cost pool, product design, it will involve all the costs that can directly be identified with the product designing activity, as in this facility. You can see research and development, engineering changes, and so on and so forth. Next topic we have is characteristics of ABC. First, instead of using a single rate approach of cost allocation, overhead cost allocation, ABC goes for a detailed approach, more focused and detailed approach. It focuses on multiple causes and effects and then assign those costs to the end product. So it's a much more detailed approach. You can have as many as 50 different cost pools and rates that we use to allocate cost to our end products. So it's a detailed approach, identifies many activities, multiple cause and effects drivers, and yes, it is widely used. It is used in banking, even in insurance, and of course in production. The most important characteristic of ABC that it results in much more accurate costing than our traditional system. The problem with our traditional system was, as we discussed a little while ago, called the product cost cross-subsidization. In the traditional system, some items that should cost less cost more, some items that should cost more cost less. This under-overcosting, called the product cost cross-subsidization, this issue is resolved to a great extent in ABC. And of course, when we have better costing information, it will be much helpful for us to set suitable pricing. And remember, this is an important point here. Since ABC, just look at this. ABC might transfer some of your sales and marketing costs in your end product, accounting department costs into your end product. Resultantly, these costs are not inventoriable costs under US GAAP or IFRS. Resultantly, ABC, as a consequence, ABC is not permissible under IFRS or under US GAAP. Further, ABC is also referred to as transaction-based costing. Why? Because the cost driver is typically the number of transactions involved in a particular activity, so that's why it's called the transaction-based costing also. So focus is on cost benefit, of course, because there are many activities that go into production of goods and different services. Some of these activities are value added and some are not. So this will help us which activities have more benefits and less cost should be maintained, and those activities that have more cost and less benefit, they must be either eliminated or they must be curtailed significantly. So let us discuss what are value added activities. Value added activities are those activities in which customer utility, customer satisfaction is added to the product or service. So they are good activities. They have more benefit than the cost. But non-value adding activities, they do not increase product value or they do not add customer satisfaction. So such costs should ideally be eliminated, or if they can't be, they should be kept at the lower. Remember, what kind of cost would you call non-value added? Warehousing. It is not a value added cost. Material handling, production scheduling, these costs, customer doesn't care. They do not add any customer utility or usefulness. So such costs are ideal for elimination if possible. So how ABC works? There are some steps. You need to first identify cost drivers. What are the activities that are causing the cost to go up? Then we will accumulate cost in the cost pools. We'll discuss all these through step-by-step approach in a detailed example. This is how we establish cost pools: material handling, production orders, product redesign, plant utilities. And each cost pool should have a cost driver. Using this cost pool and cost driver, we will establish a rate. Divide the assigned cost in these cost pools with the rates, and then we will use these rates to eventually cost our product. So I will explain all these points. It's just that how it works. We identify cost drivers, establish cost pools, allocate all the cost to these cost pools, and establish a rate for each. Like material handling cost pool will have a rate of $5 per number of parts. Production orders is driven by number of production orders. What is the cost for each production order? Product redesign. So each cost pool will have a driver, and then we will establish a rate. By this way, divide assigned cost by activity for the cost center, and using these rates to cost our product. I will explain all these 5 points through an extended example. We'll explain the idea to a much better detail. So effects of ABC, of course, we have discussed these to some extent. Accurate costing, elimination of cost cross subsidy, complex items that take more resources, more activities, they should cost more, and less complex activities will cost less. This is a very good feature of activity-based costing. And of course, better pricing, and it helps you in controlling costs because you will be able to identify which costs are value adding and which are non-value adding. So these non-value adding costs must be eliminated ideally, and this would lower your costs as well. Then ABC and standard cost system. Standard cost system we'll discuss in our next section. Standard cost system is a detailed system in which we establish the cost of materials that should be incurred in producing a good, labor hours, labor cost, It's a detailed process. So ABC and standard cost. So basically ABC is natural extension to activity-based costing. We will use standard costing and ABC to establish budgets, and using those budgets we will compare our performance, actual performance with the budget. It will result in variances either favorable or adverse. It's all coming in our subsequent studies. We'll discuss in detail. So it will help us establish budgets. We will compare our actual performance with the budgets, and then variances will be observed, favorable or adverse. They will be investigated. The idea of flexible budgeting will also be discussed later on, but let me tell you what it is. Let's say you prepared a budget based upon standard costing and you thought you will be able to produce 10,000 units and sell 10,000 units. But in actual, you were able to produce and sell 12. Now the problem is we can't compare this budget of 10 with the actual performance of 12. What we do, we revise our budget, called the flexible budget, to 12,000. Now this makes perfect sense. Now we have a revised flex budget of 12,000 units and we have the actual results of 12,000 units. So comparing these two will be much more meaningful. 12,000 budget versus 12,000 actual performance. We can compare the material on both sides, labor, variable overheads, fixed overheads, variable selling, variable admin, and will be much more meaningful to drive variances, favorable or adverse. But comparing the 10 with 12, this is of course not very helpful for performance evaluation purposes. Okay, now we have a detailed example, and here we will follow all the steps we discussed earlier, all the steps discussed in the previous slides. Okay, Iowa Products makes two products at its Boone factory. The company has used a traditional cost accounting system for application of overheads to the products. Currently, it uses direct labor hours as an application base. One product, can, incurred 150,000 direct labor hours, and another product, bottle, incurred 45,000 direct labor hours. The company is considering converting to an activity-based costing system. The estimated data for its first year of operation is summarized as follows. Let us first do this using the conventional approach. If you add all of your overheads, 480,000, 90, 250 and 2.3 million, it gives you 3.12 million. And how many number of hours for both of these items? 45 and 150, right? So if you add both of these, you will get 195, right? The rate that you get is $16 per labor hour. That is the overhead application rate under the traditional system. See, why do we need ABC? Because it will make costing much more accurate rather than just using this peanut butter approach, applying $16 per labor hour on both of these items. It will result in product cost cross subsidization. Some item that should cost less will cost more, some should cost more, should cost less, will cost less under the traditional system. That's it. That's what you're doing here. $16 per machine hour, right? And this rate is being applied on both of these items that we are currently considering, cans and bottles, right? Same rate. So this is not appropriate. This is the problem with the traditional volume-based system. Okay, so we have two items, cans and bottles, right? Applying overheads at the rate of 16 multiplied by 150. This will give us a total overhead allocated to cans 2.4 million, and 16 multiplied by 45, that will give you 720, right? This is the overhead allocated to bottles. Now if you convert it to a per unit basis, there are 500,000 cans and 150,000 bottles. So the rate that you get is $4.8 per can and $4.8 per bottle. See, what's the difference? It appears as if both of these take the similar efforts, but which is not so. See, $4.8 per can, $4.8 per bottle. This is called peanut butter approach. This is called the product cost cross subsidization. Now let us redo this question using ABC and see how the overhead cost per can varies when we use activity-based costing. So let us follow the step-by-step approach. Okay, the first step is identify cost drivers and accumulate cost in different cost pool based upon these drivers. So let us apply these two steps in the question. So we have four cost pools: material handling, production orders, product redesign, and plant utilities. So these four cost pools will have four cost drivers. Like material handling cost pool, it is driven by the number of pounds handled. Similarly, production orders cost pool is driven by the number of production orders, product redesign through number of changes, and the plant utilities through machine hours. Now, what we will do, the same cost 3.12 million is now being split into these 4 different cost pools. This cost pool has a size of $480,000. This one, $90,000, $250,000, and then 2.3 million. Now we have these 4 cost pools and we have the cost drivers given also. The first 2 steps are the cost driver and the cost pools. Now the cost driver for material handling is a total of 160, that's 160. Divided with 160, you will get the rate of material handling $3 per pound. $3 per pound. So if you handle 1 pound of material, the handling cost is $3. Then the next one is the production orders. We have $90,000, the size of this cost pool, and there are how many number of production orders? 200. So 90,000 divided by 200, that is $450 per production order. So each production order costs $450. The next cost pool is the product redesign, 250,000, and they are expected to be 250 number of changes, and that will give you a rate of $1,000 per change. Each change costs you $1,000. And lastly, plant utilities, 2.3 million. It is driven by the machine hours, 150 and 80 combined, 230, and that gives you a rate of $10 per machine hour. Now this makes much more sense now. Makes much more sense. So we have traced indirect cost to the activity centers. Next step is to divide assigned cost by activity for the cost center, which we have. And now the last step will be to cost the product. So we identified different cost drivers, cost pools, costs were assigned to these cost centers and cost pools. We identified a rate. Then last step would now be to cost the product using ABC. Now do for cans. $3 per pound, 100,000 pounds to be handled, so it's going to be 300,000. Production orders, 450 per production order. How many orders? There are hundreds. It's going to be 45,000. Same for changes, 50 multiplied by 1,000, that will give you 50,000. Plant utilities, 150,000 machine hours multiplied by 10 gives you 1.5 million. You'll do the same for bottles. I'm just writing the numbers here. How did I do it? 60,000 pounds handle time 3, 180, right? I'm just going to write down the numbers here. 45, 200,000, and lastly 80,000 machine hours multiplied by 10, $800,000. So if you total both of these, it's going to be 1,895,000 and it's going to be 1,225,000. See, how many cans were there? There were 500,000 cans. How many bottles were there? There were 150,000 bottles. Now, if you calculate the overhead cost per can and per bottle, that will be significantly different than what we did in our traditional system. So for cans, it's going to be $3.79 per can, and for bottles, it's going to be 8.167. See, what was the previous overhead per unit? That was 4.8. See, can had a $4.8 of overheads and bottles also 4.8. See, the item that should cost less, cans, did cost more. In the item that should cost more, cost less under the traditional system, volume-based system. That is the reason the issue of product cost cross-subsidization, it is resolved through ABC. It was a fantastic example, and now you see this is a much better cost. Bottles cost more because they are less in volume, consume more resources and comparatively, and cans less. Accordingly, they cost differently. Next is the service cost allocation using the activity-based costing. There are different service departments in a company. So we need to allocate those service department costs to production. Eventually, service department cost will move to production, and from production, it will end up into the end units of products, right? So there are 3 methods, but in CPA, you will be studying only 2. In CMA, we do all the 3. The first method is the direct method of allocating the service department cost. It is the least complex method. What we do in the direct allocation, direct method, Let's say we have two departments, let's canteen and stores. What we do, we transfer the allocated cost of service department, canteen and stores directly into production department 1 and 2 based upon the driver. Like for example, canteen cost is driven by number of lunches served. Based upon this number of lunches, the cost is transferred to production department 1 and 2. Service department stores, its cost is driven by the number of material requisition. Whichever production department requests more services from service department will carry more cost. So this is the direct method, least complex but not a very accurate one, because we are failing to recognize that the canteen keeps its material in stores like food, items like rice, pulses, flour, etc. It is kept in stores, and at the same time the people working in stores department, they eat their meals at stores, at canteen, sorry. So there is an interdepartmental service being delivered, which is totally ignored under the direct method. Then the second method is the step-down method. This is a comparatively more accurate method, also called the sequential method. Service to service and then service to production. Now, let's consider the case. We have two service departments, canteens and stores, two production department. We start with that department that provides the most services. Let's say service department stores provide 10% of services to canteen, whereas canteen department provides 30% of its services to stores. So whichever department, service department, provides more services, we start with that department. What we do, we will allocate the cost of service departments to the stores, to the production department 1 and to the production department 2. Now the canteen cost has been transferred to stores, production 1, production 2. Now the new cost, let's say stores had its own cost of $100,000. The canteen department transferred its cost of $80,000 to stores. Now $180,000, which is now in the stores department, it will now be then allocated between production department 1 and 2, right? So that's why it's called sequential method. Canteen's cost goes to stores, but stores cost doesn't go back to canteen, right? And then stores cost is transferred to production 1 and production 2. This is called the step down method. It is better than the previous method, but still it has a limitation that it totally ignores that you're transferring canteen cost to stores, but store also served canteen. That was ignored. This is done in a complex method called reciprocal method, solved in a complex way through simultaneous equation. That is clearly not a part of your syllabus, so don't you worry about that. Okay, the next topic we have is the joint and byproduct costing. What is joint product costing? What are joint products, byproducts? Let us first discuss. Joint products are two or more products that are generated from a common input. Like we have petroleum, when entered into a fractional distillation chamber, it splits into its different fractions like oil, gasoline and chemical. These are your joint products that are generated simultaneously through a joint common process. Now, with these main products, we might get some production units which have relatively very small, little value compared to the other products. Minor products with the relatively small total value compared to the other main products. Such products are called the byproducts. So joint production process is a process in which multiple products are produced through a common production process. Some of them sell at a higher price. They are called the main products. And some of them might be of very little value. They are called the byproducts, right? Within this production system, there will be a point after which different items will emerge. They will be separated. That point is called the split off point. Then we have joint product cost, or JC. This is the cost incurred up to this point. Joint product cost or joint cost incurred in producing these different products, incurred up to the split off point. And any cost incurred after that, which can be separately identified with the end product, it is called the separable product cost or separable cost. So now we have the complete picture. These are your joint products. The cost incurred on these products after the split off point, they are called the separable product cost or just separable cost, right? Joint product cost is the cost incurred up to the split off point. Main products sell at a higher price, total value is more, but the byproducts have small total value. Okay, now moving on. The issue for us in joint and byproduct costing is how to allocate the joint cost incurred up to this point. Let's say we have incurred an overall $103,000 joint cost inclusive of direct material, direct labor, and your manufacturing overhead, which includes, of course, your fixed and variable. All is included up to this point, split of point. How do we split this 103, or how do we divide or allocate this 103 into the main products? There are three methods. One is the volume-based method, in which we use some physical quantity base to allocate the joint cost. Then we have the joint cost allocation sales value known as split off, and finally a situation where there is no sales value at split off. Let us learn how do we allocate the joint cost under these three methods. Remember, what is the joint cost? Cost incurred up to the split off point, and this cost is now need to be distributed to the joint cost, and there are three methods to do that. Let us discuss these one by one. Take this example. Simple manufacturing company produces two products, product A, product B. Direct cost associated with manufacturing of product A and B are 25 and 50 respectively. These are separable costs. We don't have to be worried about them. With joint cost of production representing $10,000. This is JC, which we have to split between A and B. In order to allocate joint cost, the company used the proportional gallons of production. That's the physical quantity method of the two main products. Product A has 10,000 gallons, product B 20, so the total is 30. So basically 10 by 30, that is 1/3 and 2/3 of your joint cost should be split between A and B. Why 1/3? Because 10,000 gallons out of 30 are A and 20 out of 30 are B, 2/3. So 1/3 of your joint cost should go to A and 2/3 of your joint cost should go to B. So if you calculate, it's going to be 33.3 and it's going to be 6667. Simple. This is how we have allocated the joint cost by just taking their physical quantities. We didn't bother to see what was their market price, just the physical quantity. Next is sales value known at split off. Okay, now we have these two items A and B. Brown company produces two products A and B. Joint production costs incurred in the production A and B are $1,000. This is the joint cost which we need to allocate. At the split off point, 100 units of A are produced, which has a sales price of $20, and 400 units of B are produced, that has a sale price of 15. So instead of using their physical quantities, we are using the sales value known at split off. That is going to be $2,000 for A and $6,000 for B. So this is the total sales value. Using these amounts as proportions, we can now allocate the joint cost. Have we been given the joint cost? Let's see. Yes, this is it, $1,000. Now 2,000 out of 8,000, that is 2 by 8, or simply write 2,000 divided by 8,000. This proportion of the joint cost goes to A, and 6,000 by 8,000, this proportion of the joint cost goes to B. If you simplify, it's going to be 250 and 750. So here we did not use the physical quantity, rather we use the sales value known at split off. This is the second method. The third one, no sales value at split off. For this we have another method to calculate sales value at split off. We have to drive using this formula. Sales value at split off is equal to final selling price minus identifiable cost incurred after the split off. This basically is NRV. This is NRV, final selling price minus further processing cost or identifiable cost incurred after split off point. This is also called the separable cost. So we can use these two to identify NRV or the sales value split off and then use it to allocate the joint cost. Let me solve this question and that will explain the idea. How did we do it? Smith Company produces two joint products F, G. Joint production cost for October were $300,000 which need to be allocated. Further processing cost beyond the split off point needed to be to convert the products into saleable form were $16,000 for and $24,000 for F and G respectively, right? Needed to convert the products into saleable form were 16 and 424 for 1600 units of F and 800 units of G respectively. Remember, this is the further processing cost given here, 16,000 and 24,000. It further says that F sells for $25 per unit and G sells for $50 per unit after further processing, right? So we need to calculate your final selling price. FSP is the final selling price. So what you're going to do, multiply 16,000 with 1600 units of F with the selling price 25. That will give you 40,000. And for G, there are 800 units to be valued at the rate of 50. 800 times 50, that gives you 40,000. So that's it. Your final selling price for F and G, and that's identifiable cost incurred after split off. That is further processing cost. This will give you what you normally call NRV, but here we call it sales value split off. And we then use it to allocate the joint cost. So it comes out to be 24,000 for F and 16,000 for G. Now we can use these proportion 24, 16, 40. 24,000 by 40,000 multiplied by the joint cost which we need to allocate 30,000. This proportion of the joint cost goes to F, and then the second part G, it's going to be 16,000 divided by 40,000 multiplied by 30,000. This proportion goes to G. So if you split this, it's going to be 18,000 of joint cost goes to F and 12,000 goes to G, and the total of 18 plus 12, 30. This is the third method. Then we have service department's cost allocation to joint products. We use the same way. The allocation of service department cost, like in this example, can be made to joint products using the joint products unit volume relationship. So it's exactly the same. You will use like this. These are two units, product A and B, and we have to allocate the $6,000 of the service department cost, the janitorial services, into product A and B. Use these 10 and 20 proportion and split 6,000 between A and B based upon this proportion. If you do, it's going to be 2,000 for A and 4,000 for B. So this is how we allocate this 6,000 of janitorial service department cost allocated to the product A and B. It's fairly straightforward, no science involved here. Then what we have at the end is byproducts. We discussed byproducts are items of production produced simultaneously in a joint process. Byproducts have relatively minor value. So how do we account for them? They have total minor value compared to the other products. The other products are called the main products, and byproducts have a comparatively much smaller value than compared to the main product. How do we treat it in accounting? There are two ways. Either, let's say we have produced 1,000 of byproduct X that sells for $2 only, or $3 only, right? That gives you $3,000. Now, how do we treat this $3,000? The first method apply to the main product. What we do, let's say if our joint cost is $93,000, we deduct this NRV of the byproduct $3,000 from the joint cost, and the remaining 90,000 joint cost is allocated to your main products A, B, C. Let's say they are your main products that have significantly higher sales value than X. So this 90,000 is then allocated to ABC, and this 3,000 is used to deduct from the total joint cost. This is the first method. And in the second method, what we do, we do not deduct the value of joint byproduct from the joint cost. We allocate 93 between A, B, and C. 93. This sales value of your byproduct, it is treated as a miscellaneous income. That's another alternative. Mostly in practice, that's what we do. We apply the byproduct's value as a reduction from the joint cost. Remaining joint cost is allocated amongst the main products. And then finally, how to decide between the joint costing or the byproduct costing, as we have just discussed in industry. That's what we do, apply the joint cost to the main product. So it's totally dependent upon the demand of the byproduct. So decision regarding whether to use the byproduct costing or joint costing, they depend upon the circumstances and the relative demand of the byproduct. That's all. It completes your module Cost Accounting Part 3.